Bomb shelters were once part of everyday life. They were the ultimate symbol of Cold War paranoia. But as tensions between the East and West began to subside, bomb shelters became passé. Many of them were actually dismantled, except for a few, which still remain active. Bob Gillingham from CBC Vancouver visited one of the shelters in British Columbia.
Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and Bikini Atoll changed our lives forever as the world ushered in the nuclear era. Governments responded by building nuclear shelters, such as the one underneath this grassy knoll in Nanaimo. It's still here, and it's still operational. Prime Minister John Diefenbaker had one of these built in every province in Canada in the 1960s. They became instantly known as Diefenbunkers. In Nanaimo, they sent the army in to see if people could actually live in them. The soldiers quite liked it, according to their officers, but they were only inside for 48 hours.
Were the men bored at all? No, the test didn't last long enough to be bored, and with the movies and the very good food, they were finished before they became bored.
I found a few others. Queen Margaret School in Duncan had one. All the kids dutifully taking their places when the alarm went off. It's now used as a storage shed for old garden tools.
A number of private shelters still exist, but I find the owners guard them like they were King Solomon's mines. There's actually one located on this quiet street in Vancouver, but I promise to keep the location a secret. This looks like the entrance to a vault, but actually when it was originally designed back in the 60s, it was to take care of much more precious cargo, human beings. It was supposed to be a bomb shelter.
The walls in this place are reinforced concrete, but the living accommodation leaves something to be desired. At least there's wine. By contrast with the Western world, the Russians are into shelters in a big way. They claim to have a $200 billion civil defense shelter system. An entire branch of their military is involved. It's a mandatory part of their education beginning in the 5th grade. They've even produced a series of training films on how citizens should respond to an atomic attack. This is one of 7 tapes they made available to the University of Oregon.
When I was in Poland,
Mark Jaworski fronts a group called the Survival Association of Canada. It had hundreds of members back in the 60s, but now less than 10. Jaworski says the Russians are still very serious about their shelters.
The interest in civil defense in the Soviet Union certainly did not slacken during the perestroika. In fact, there is probably more money spent now and in a much more efficient way.
At least the Diefenbunker lives on in Canada. Here, we have an underground center capable of housing more than 300 people. It's reserved for politicians, their support staff, and the military. You can live down here, supposedly, for 6 weeks.
We have fresh air fans that bring in air from outside through filter system, and then it's brought up into the air plenum room next door, and it's circulated through the AC units that supply the various offices and bedrooms.
Is there a backup system?
Not as such, no.
What happens if something goes wrong with that system?
With that, we have a backup fan. We have an extra fan for each. If one fan goes down, it brings the air in. We have another fan. If they both went down, well, then you have to open the doors, I guess. But that's all you could do.
Major Baker, the man in charge, was willing to show us the entire bunker. But there are some things you just don't do.
Major Baker, you have this thing on the wall. It's called the Alert System Status Board, and it's covered with the green felt at the moment. Why can't we see it?
It's because the information that is on that board is classified.
Can you give me a general idea of what would be classified information under there? Would it be movements of troops? Would it be movements of aircraft or something like that?
I'm sorry, it is classified information, and I'm not permitted to divulge that information.
The place reminds me of a medium-sized hotel circa 1955. A big dining room, the one the soldiers like so well. Sleeping accommodations that might be classified as cheek by jowl. Even a premier would have to make sacrifices.
This little room, not as big as some modern jail cells, is reserved for the premier.
and his wife and family are not invited.
Fred Cooper, the BC Director of Emergency Preparedness Canada, says the bunker is still important.
Would it be fair to suggest that it's a white elephant?
No, I'm not sure I would go quite that far. There are a number of uses for the facility that still remain. For example, if we had a major earthquake, we could have a nuclear incident that had nothing to do with wartime. We could have damage to nuclear facilities in Washington state that would result in our still requiring this facility and the training of the people in it to tell people in BC where the fallout was going to go and what to do about it.
The center also contains a broadcast facility. It's supposed to be operated by CBC personnel, a technician, and someone like me. But I don't think I'd like to spend 6 weeks down here. Bob Gillingham, CBC News, at the bunker in Nanaimo.